And Archana's talk is all going to be about music and design leadership. Really excited about it.
Thank you.
Oh,
Can I-
sorry.
it's the clicker.
Thank you.
राधा के प्रिया बने घनश्याम, राधा के नाम से जुड़ गया श्याम, राधे श्याम, राधे श्याम, राधा के देवा कान्हा, कान्हा प्रिया है राधा, बिना राधा जी के कृष्ण है आधा, राधा कृष्ण चरणों में कोटि प्रणाम, राधे श्याम, राधा के प्रिया बने घनश्याम, राधा के नाम से जुड़ गया श्याम, राधे श्याम, राधे श्याम, राधे श्याम, राधे श्याम. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Archana Thiagarajan. I'm a senior director, a leader, a design leader. Whoa. Taylor, your talk is going to become my talk now. I think I know what I'm doing. Yeah, there we are, almost. I was warned about this. So yes, so picking up from where I left off, I'm a design leader at Adobe. And I came here to share with you a really unique journey, right? So I grew up as a child with equal interest in the music and the arts. And also, I had a very strong rational mind. Mathematics was a subject that I was phenomenally good at and was a favorite subject. It was one of those two things, those variables came together. So I had equal interest in both those disciplines, right? Fast forward a few years, I ended up going to a school to become an architect. Decided I'm great at it, really good at it, but I don't have the patience for the buildings to get stood up. Right? So I ended up discovering this amazing domain called user experience. It was called human factors and computer-human interactions. I'm dating myself by saying all of those things, but a lot of things that didn't sound very human, but exciting nevertheless, right? So discovered that discipline, ended up designing and building teams to design experiences for the Homeland Security, Navy, the Army of the United States of America. Then went on to design consumer experiences for a company called Kodak. How many of you know Kodak? Thank God. Because whenever I talk to this generation, they're like, what? What? Right? So I worked with Eastman Kodak for a little while. And then I, fast forward a few decades, started my journey with Adobe with their first enterprise acquisition called Omniture back in Utah. And here I am, 15 years since, leading an enterprise organization for them. Why am I telling you this story? Because it would be incomplete for me to share any lived experience without talking to you as I have humanly grown up, right? And I have to acknowledge that these experiences have had an effect on each other. The tapestry that has created has resulted in the person that I am. And I hope by the end of this talk, you recognize the power that each one of you have, right? That those are superpowers you can leverage from other disciplines. No discipline lives on an island by itself, right? You can be a better leader because of many things, not just because of the jobs that we do. So let me talk about enterprise experiences, right? Enterprise experiences are all about efficiency, right? It's about enabling our customers' organization to meet their revenue goals, performance, productivity. And then you have music on the other end. What kind of words do you think when you think about music? Beauty, melody, rhythm, Escape. Ocean. Yeah. Say that again. Emotion. Yes. Emotions. It's a soulful experience, a joyful experience. How can these two things have things in similar? That's where I'm going to bring you on a journey with me, because there's got so many things. While preparing for this talk, it was so hard to pick 5 things that have influenced and had that commonality and that tapestry woven together. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to share with you 5 things, but your homework is to go back and look at what could other things be as well. Yeah? So let's start with number 1. Complex is incredibly beautiful. Who agrees with me? Who's had experiences like that? Yeah? But very often, that's what pulls us down, right? That can bog you down as well. Enterprise experience can be complicated, right? So let me give you an example in the music discipline, right? In the music that I'm trained by my mother, and I'm trained in South Indian classical music, otherwise called Carnatic music. We have 72 predominant scales. 72. So an example, the song that I just sang right now, the scale there, it's called the Rag Tilang. Sa ga ma pa ni sa ni pa ma ga sa. Another scale would be sa ma ga ma da ni sa ni da ma ga ri sa. That's Vasanta. Or a scale that you probably more commonly recognize is sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa do ti la so fa mi re do. Right? So we have 72 such unique scales and derivatives coming from it. Does that sound like complicated to you? Yeah. Incredibly overwhelming as a person, as a student of music. Add on to it, there are 35 rhythm measure structures. But I'm sure you don't need to know Carnatic music to relate to this. How many beautiful compositions are there? It almost doesn't matter that complexity exists, because that complexity has resulted in phenomenal, beautiful melodies. Similarly, in enterprise experience, as a contrast to consumer experiences, you are not only enabling the individual has to succeed, fundamentally, but that individual is part of a team that has to succeed. That team is part of organizations that succeed. The organizations cumulatively succeed for the business to succeed, right? That's one lever. What's the other lever? You all know this, working in teams. Our success doesn't come from just working successfully in our hierarchy, but cross-functionally. Man, that's complicated, right? So the measurement of success, we talked about measurement. There was a lot of good discussion happening there. It's not very straightforward, right? So yet, phenomenal things happen because of complexity. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is creativity, right? And the fact that creativity is birthed from constraints. Like I said, right, with the 72 scales that we talked about in the discipline of music that I'm trained in, there are innumerable number of melodies created in each scale. So many varieties of expressions and emotions expressed by each one of those melodies, very different, right? So now let me tell you, the aspect of it on the enterprise side of things, right? There are constraints on the enterprise side. Who thinks there are no constraints on the enterprise side? I hope no hands go up. Okay, right? I'll tell you my own acquisition story, my Adobe story here, is that with every acquisition came a unique data platform, some behavioral data, some event-based data, right? Some B2B data, some B2C data. I mean, any flavor of data, and these systems don't talk to each other, right? They're all acquisitions. They're meant to, at the most, work with point-to-point integrations, right? And then there are privacy needs. There are permission requirements. There's contextual requirements. There is no end of constraints. But I want you to look at it as an opportunity because, going back to our previous topic on complex, if you unlock value, if you unlock and create connections for that individual, for that team, for that organization, for the business, you've done something incredibly beautiful and phenomenally creative, right? So there is that thread for you. The next one is connections. This is a picture where I had the opportunity to perform with my mother in a TEDx conference in Salt Lake City, Utah. It was such an amazing experience because we stood there singing in a language that most people didn't understand, probably something that you all experienced today as well, right? Unplugged. I just had a drone, and it was literally about 20 minutes of pin drop silence. And then when the audience lights came back on, like that wonderful gentleman shared there, you could read that everybody had had an emotional experience. It didn't need to be spelled out, but there was a connection there. And it was meaningful to invest in it. The reason that that connection happens is because of the preparation that goes into earlier. It's like, what is the experience I want to leave the audience with? Would I want them inspired? Do I want them celebrating? Do I want them being contemplative? What is the experience, right? You have to be very intentional about it, whether be it your users or audience. And that's the spirit. That's what you want to be teaching your teams and gearing your teams. It's not just an academic exercise, right, where you understand your user and do the contextual inquiries or go through the usability tests. You have to be in it to see them succeed. You have to be in it to convey a shared experience, right? You have to be in it because you care. The next thing over here is a shared intent. This is probably something that a lot of us can relate to, right? I don't think you need to have a deep understanding of any music discipline of understanding what a sheet music does. Be it an orchestra, they might be playing different aspects of that composition, coming together at different timings, but it's the sheet music that keeps them together, right? And the discipline of music that I'm trained in, we don't have sheet music. A lot of my music was learned word to mouth. In fact, my mother wouldn't even let us write down our songs because she wanted us to learn it in a way that we could express the emotions behind it first, right? But we understood the structure of that scale. We understood the intent of that composition. And every time we performed, we would be performing with different artists, with different bands. But that structure brought us together. So what does that mean in enterprise experience? And I'll tell you where that matters. Is the preparation that goes behind the scenes, right? Bring the people along. Take, for example, we talked about how do you bring people along? The seat at the table won't suddenly appear unless you've brought and invested in a common language. Earlier speakers talked about that today as well, right? So if you need them to understand what the user is going through, you've got to bring them along, right? Bring them along in that experience. Get them to understand. So before they get there and start brainstorming whatever solutions you're looking for, you want them to be there already having learned the general language of that scape, right? You don't want to spend most of your time on alignment when you're getting people together. So that's what the shared intent does. And then the last piece over here, my fifth point for today, is the yes and that happens. The prerequisite is that there's a shared music, there's a connection, all of those things are prerequisites, right? So then when you bring these different people, like, in jazz music, you have something called informed improvisation, right? Creation happens on stage. That took a ton of practice. Took a ton of investment up front, right? Creation happens on stage. People are completing each other's sentences, musically speaking, right? So if you want that experience in a collaborative exercise, so you have to invest upfront. You've got to train your teams to say, what is the structure of collaboration? What is the outcome you're driving for, right? Invest in that shared intent upfront so that you can create the right environment for that cumulative energy. Why is all of this important, though? Tell me, how many of you feel like you run an uphill battle trying to convince your organizations to invest in experiences, doing the right thing, not compromising on timelines and deadlines? How many of you have run up that? I still do. I sing and all, but I don't think I can get away with singing at meetings, right? But yeah, that is a thing. So make it your mission to get them there as co-creators, co-authors. And we are in an economy right now, right? I wish I was hiring. We're always going to be. Design organizations, by far, are underfunded. We know that, right? We always will have lesser number of people than we want for the work to get done. So if you can't hire, groom them. Groom them in your organizations, right? Get other people to care about this as much as you do. So that's what you can do by creating structure and outcome for your collaborative exercises, right? so that that energy instills an ownership. People walk away feeling like they have co-written this chapter with you. So what I'm going to do next is, I know this all sounds very academic, right? And it sounds like these are things that we can think about when we have time to think about it. But I'm going to show you the mission that I have been on for the last 3 years. So the thing with my role at Adobe is I've always been a dreamer. It's very, very hard to put me down. Yes, I do get disappointed. I have my days when I want to run away. Enterprise does bog me down sometimes. But I don't really, the tendency for me is I tend not to give up and I want to hope that there is always a better way, which means I continuously invest in planting a flag for the organization, for the company, for the business, right? So I'm going to show you how these 5 things have had a bearing on a project that has been my mission for the last 3 or 4 years. So like I said, Adobe, the business unit that I run the design organization for, is called Experience Cloud. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Creative Cloud, probably Document Cloud, not so much on the Experience Cloud side. But the mission of this particular business is to enable our customers' organization to deliver the right experience at the right time to the right consumers. The hilarity is I keep asking my leadership and all of the business leaders is, can we turn that around? Do we do that for our users? Not enough, right? Because we're a village of acquisitions. So it was really, really hard, and we kept walking away saying it's too complicated, we don't have enough time, right? And no matter what vision I put in place, right, nobody would disagree with it. My team would work really hard, and they would be really inspired by it, but really didn't know how to, which part of the elephant do we begin from, right? So this is when these things came in handy. Is when I said, okay, fine, it's not a vision that is missing over here. I don't think anybody disagrees that this could be better. I need to really accompany this with a strategy and an approach, right? So passion alone is not important. It is important, but it has to be backed with objectivity. And I'll tell you a little more a little later. So this project was really interesting because what my team was striving for is breaking silos and creating more and more continuity for our users. But we needed to convert that language into something that our product partners, our engineering partners, our product marketing people, our sales people understood the value and the mission in it, right? Why? What's in it for me? Why would I sell differently? Why should I train my organization to sell differently if I don't have, what's my skin in the game? What do I get from this, right? So let me show you what we did. So what is composability? Let me break that down for you a little bit. So this aspect over here will give you an idea. The words are not that relevant, but this sort of expresses to you our product stack, right? Most of which were acquisitions. There are a couple of things over here that we ended up building organically, but nevertheless, because they're acquisitions, they come with unique services, and even as of today, stand as monolithic applications. But we stand up there telling our customers that you can use a lot of our products because it's an integrated suite. But integrated almost sells us very, very, the baseline is very low when you talk about integration. It needs to be more. So the design organization recognized these services and said, can we use our tools and our problem-solving skills to express this to you as this ecosystem of objects that our users engage in and show you where the overlaps are. Right? These are all acquisitions, but there are reporting services everywhere, authoring services everywhere. Can we express that to you so that you have that aha moment that we keep having every time? Which we did, right? So when we did that, it became very clear that there was something that needed to change. So then we invested in what's called a data platform, and different product teams were starting to rewrite their capabilities. And we said, whoa, if you're rewriting them, don't perpetuate what exists today. Rewrite them as being composable so that they'll work in more than just your silo. That's where complex becomes beautiful. That's where the yes and brainstorms come into play, right? So these capabilities then became a simpler set of capabilities that we aspire to build over a period of time. And now this is where the user needs come into play, right? Now that we have a simpler set of capabilities, we are encouraging our product organization to say, let's build the permissioning model behind it so that the user only sees a subset of those capabilities. How often do users in your organizations are faced with 80% of the product that they don't even care about, right? But this allows them to really, as a company, be able to deliver only a subset of capabilities while keeping in mind the organizational structure. So then these subset of capabilities present themselves as a comprehensive list, either in a left-hand navigation. That's a very basic, simple structure to start with, right? It doesn't require much intelligence. It just lets you have a permissioning. As long as you have a permissioning system that enables you to know who's permissioned for what, which I know is not simple by any means, but that's one place to start. Then you progress where these same capabilities, when somebody, let's say, is focused on a particular workflow in a particular canvas, is then able to reach for these capabilities as and when required based on the focus on the canvas, let's say on a right rail somewhere, right? It starts becoming a language that they can understand. Your product and engineering people get excited about things like this because they look at the scale of what this can do, right? Or modal and contextual experiences that can be reached to when required, but doesn't need to take away from your cognitive load, right? And then you further this a few steps. Get the organization excited and say, okay, this is a manual process. How do you get this to become more intelligent? Is to build these environments and canvases where these objects can intelligently speak with each other, where it starts becoming an environment that they can decide, they can be co-authors. Your users can be co-authors in what the outcome that they're driving for, and then these objects play nicely with each other, right? This investment went a long way. Why? Why am I telling you this story? This was not just a design experience. It was not my team's story. This was a journey that we took with product, with engineering, got them inspired, and now we are starting to spin off, talking about go-to-markets that can leverage this model. Because today's environment, right, you can keep selling more of what you have, but if you don't understand that people are starting to look at, the coming generation starts to look at simplicity as a requirement, right? Flexibility as a requirement, this enables you, an approach like this enables you to bring people along, right? And not just be worried about this quarter or the next quarter's revenue, but a long-term growth strategy. And as an outcome, we have a plan to deliver the right experience at the right time to the right user. Right? So I hope you saw from the footnotes below, right, these things had a way to impact how we approached it, right? Why is, again, I'll bring this back to why this was important for me and my growth as an individual, as a leader. I talked about this briefly, right? It is important for us as design leaders to strive for great processes, fantastic systems, seat at that table, more design resourcing. All of those things are incredibly important. But what I have personally realized is that my role as a leader is about creating inspiration and energy, creating a spark in the organization. Creating a spark, creating an environment where people can co-author and can own that story together, can write their chapter with you, right? The difference between being part of a concert that you experience to a concert that you can clap your hands with, to a concert where you can participate in. That's the role, right? That's the role of us as design leaders, like I said, is that you can continue chasing and figuring out, hey, my eventual goal is to have a team that can do all of these things. Like I said, if you can't hire them, train them around, inspire them. So with that, I'm going to leave you with this phenomenal concert. Who has heard about this musician, Jacob Collier? Yeah, he's phenomenal. If you haven't heard about this guy, he's incredibly intelligent. He's a musician, songwriter, and instrumentalist, and does some really, really unique things with music. I'm going to play for you and end my talk there. We'll open up for questions later. The next 2 minutes, this was a concert that happened literally 5 kilometers from here at the Toronto Opera House. And I want you, and I would encourage, if you feel inclined so, to sing along. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a beautiful presentation. When the last music was playing, I was again, I don't know why, I was doing the breathing exercise from the morning. Yes. Thank you, Christina, again. That was beautiful. And also, we were joking about it earlier about when you shared that you're going to start with a song. That was like, was it a dare? And you were like, no, I'm going to dare myself to, step it up. So thank you so much for that. Do we have questions for Archana? Oh, how many people sing here? It's not related to you standing up and then me asking you to sing. Actually, I shouldn't have said that because now no one's gonna raise their hands. From the balcony, all the cool kids. No, not many singers here. So I think all of us got to learn a lot, at least on the lyrical side of design leadership. Do you have any questions? Yes. Sorry.
No, that's good. You didn't expect this happening, did you? What are examples of where you all have drawn inspiration from other disciplines? I draw from music. What's another example? Something that's a lived experience. Yes. Dance. Can you say more?
Yeah, for me, also actually similarly, I started in architecture, and then I moved into product design. It was also the patience for me, and yeah, I've danced like my whole life. Some years in competitive, and now more just for fun. But I found like the process of actually like working through choreography and how like I picked that up is very similar to like I can't think of any direct examples right now, but just in general, the process of design, whether that's like product design or that was architecture. So
That's
yeah.
beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else? Any other discipline?
Great talk, by the way, Archana. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So it's still design, but it's design adjacent. I started out in fashion, so I'm now like in marketing design. But a lot of the just like following trends, figuring out why people are buying, up and down, like trickle up, trickle down theory, and just the practice of mood boarding. And now my work is entirely digital. But starting out just like buying fabric and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of that translates into my work now. We just have like Miro and Figma to help us. But yeah, design adjacent, but I think I have like a lot of like my fashion tenets that I still use now.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't know if this counts, but parenthood has been, especially with leadership, the amount of times I go, wait, that's very similar. Oh, that's the exact same thing. Actually, that's not similar. So that's parenthood for me.
Oh my God. I don't know. I have a 10-year-old and oh, fantastic. And you probably realize you get to a point where you're trying to rationalize with them and get them on board. And you've gone too far and realize I'm actually wrong. But I've gone too far. I cannot acknowledge it right now. Can I just say I told you so? That doesn't work in leadership either. So I'm with you.
Thanks. I just want to say, amazing talk. I too raised my hand. I did sing as well, still sing. Saw a lot of analogies there, but also songwriting as a craft, which is something that I do. I could relate to design in some respects, especially the whole craft of creating the emotion and the words that you use, being very intentional with the words to paint the picture if you can write a song well. And also the rhythm that you use in the song to get everybody, like, into the rhythm and getting them singing along with you.
Thank you. Yeah, rhythm provides that structure, a shared structure. Absolutely. Anyone else? Anyone a painter, an artist? Yes, there's wonderful hands up there.
Thank you. Well, not from art perspective, but I've been renovating for 2 years a really old house, and from the process perspective, I see a lot of similarities with, project management and, all these details I've been dealing with. Also, another thing I've been doing on and off is rock climbing, and I find this solving a problem and all this emotional roller coaster, I found so many similarities between design and climbing. So
Beautiful. Rock climbing analogies and renovation. I mean, renovation is enterprise experience for me. You can't change everything. You got to begin somewhere. So many limitations. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, one of the things I think is adjacent with a lot of designers I know, including myself, is starting out in comic books and drawing sequential art and stuff like that. And then the other one that I find that a lot of designers intersect with is comedy. So a lot of people really enjoy seeing comedy shows, and I think it has to do with sort of problem solving and improv. But yeah,
That is beautiful. Yeah. It reminded me, so all of us designers are not trained to publicly speak or manage or do a lot of the things that we kind of train on the spot. Like Jessa was saying earlier, even about hiring. And we used improv comedy. We brought comedians to help break the ice and get people comfortable about speaking and being able to talk about their work. Thank you for sharing that.
Anyone else? Lost? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Archana. That was a beautiful talk. Thank you.